Welcome to The Conversation. This is Shannon Taylor, Executive Director of Blacks and Jews in Conversation.
Why is he yelling? It's a performance, not an audition.
I'm yelling because I have to overtop the two gentlemen behind me, Elliot and Ian Finkel. Besides, I always yell when I do Joey Reynolds. I'm accused of yelling. When I'm in court, I'm accused of yelling. When I'm home with my wife, I'm accused of yelling all the time. It doesn't matter. This is my normal voice. What can I tell you?
Does your wife yell at you or you yell at her?
It's a yelling city.
You both yell at each other. You have a
city.
talented wife, Judith. She's got a lot of stuff, you know.
All we do is we yell and we yell.
Well, don't yell at her anymore.
But I'm going to turn the program over to the most talented family of all, the Finkels. And on my left in the camera is Elliot, who's the virtuoso pianist.
We're the most talented since the Howard brothers.
And the grunge and the right, the Grinch, the one who will never let you say a sentence, is Ian. He is the virtuoso xylophonist. I used to work with Lionel Hampton many, many years ago.
Yeah, but he's a vibraphonist.
Vibraphonist.
You know what's the difference between a vibraphonist and a xylophonist? Do you know the difference? About 20 grand a year. Hey, we're here all week trying to veal.
Ian, while we're on the subject, which is the longest mallet instrument between the marimba and the xylophone and the rest of it?
What do you mean? Long? You mean in size?
In terms of the notes that you would play.
Well, the biggest instruments are marimbas. They go very low now. They go down to the bass clef all the way up to double high C. A xylophone is not that big a range. It's about 3.5 octaves. Marimba, they got 5, 6, 7. They go all the way down to the contrabass range, all the way up. They're huge. They're big.
When I was in the steel drum bands in the Caribbean,
yes, what
was the instrument that was being played with the steel drum? It was a very large...
There's all different steel drums. They got the bass.
No, it looked like a marimba type of thing. Would that have been it?
No. No. Steel drum bands are steel drums. The tenors, the altos, the soprano.
They had a xylophone type of thing.
They had a xylophonist come in?
Type of xylophone.
You know, I didn't know they used xylophones with steel bands. Could we have a cup of coffee with them later? Maybe give me a job or something.
Here, listen, we're dealing with people. They'll tell you in the next show. They've worked with everybody from Groucho Marx and Danny Thomas and Milton Berle and Sid Caesar and Ron Pecan and onward to Michael Feinstein and so on. But that their father is, of course, the eminent actor Fivish Finkel, who won the Emmy for trying to play a lawyer in picket fences. He was the nicest lawyer you'd ever want to meet, the most honest and virtuoso lawyer. If you had him for your lawyer, you went to the Supreme Court with Wambaugh. Wambaugh to the Supreme Court. Every episode had everybody.
But now you're our lawyer.
Well, I can't practice privately. I work. I'm not allowed to practice privately.
No.
No.
Why not?
Well, never mind. But I want you to know that my advice would always be sound, especially to you, but I take the best advice from your father. No one gives
No, when you give advice, we listen. You know everything about the law.
So show the album and go ahead. I'm turning it over to you now to start with
Go ahead.
And tell a little bit about your father's career, but start with the album.
There it is. You can show it closer. You got it. There it is. Good. Oh, that was good. Good. Cellophane. It's a piece of cellophane over it. You turn it over. Turn it over. Very nice. Very good. All right. This is an album we did. That's enough. Yeah. That side piece means nothing. This is an album we did.
Yourself covered up too long.
This is an album we did. This has many originals on it. Has a lovely studio orchestra on it. The top musicians. Tops. Was done at a beautiful studio and everything. Our dad did this album, and may I, just for half a second, because I heard we're on it. It's called It's Never Too Late. See? That's 3D TV. And why don't you read some of the names of the tunes that are on it, see? Some are originals. We'll let you talk at this point, because when the two of us get going, there's 10 of us in here.
The message is that Fivish did this album at what age? This is the message. See, we are a non-commercial network. I'm not putting this on to sell records. It's been It's been out a long time. The message is, at what age did your father do this album?
80. He did the album at 80 years old. Do you want to help me out here? I'm dying alone over here. Come on. Talk about the album. Yeah.
Hello. I'm Harpo Marx.
Yeah, I know you're not. That he did it at the age of 80, right? And he's in great shape. Still in great shape. Fabulous.
Hello. I'm Elliot Finkel. Nice to see you all here. I do talk once in a while. And yes, the man was 86 now, but he was 80 when he did the album. He's still in great voice, still touring the country, doing great moments from the album. And here we are. I'm the younger Finkel, though I look older. I play the piano. I've been playing all my life. I do concerts. He's my biggest account right next to me.
Yeah, and I owe you more money than anyone.
That's right.
By the way, our dad just did a movie.
That's right. He's in A Serious Man. And
the Coen brothers.
Coen brothers.
Those are brothers that have money, not the Finkel brothers.
Right. And when he
Will
gets...
you stop it with the money and the money and the money? He went all the way to Minnesota to do that in
That's
86.
right.
That's right.
I haven't been to Minnesota yet, and I knew every Republican there.
You know Minnesota?
I know every inch of Minnesota. Since Hubert Humphrey, those were the days of the Democrats. So they had another Democrat. He crashed down in a helicopter. I went to the Republicans.
Well, we appeared with the Minnesota Orchestra.
Oh, that's, I think McKinley was president.
And then
That's the last time we got lucky, too,
we
you know.
were one of, no, I think I got lucky when Nixon resigned. But
Yeah, well.
But anyway, in fact, one night in Minnesota, we opened the new concert hall.
That's right.
An actor and I named Herschel Bernardi. And that was where he fell off the stage. He got so confused from all the new lights that instead of crossing to me, he went right into the audience.
No kidding.
And the beauty of it is with troopers, he went on and continued the performance.
Oh, those guys, yeah, old-time guys.
What troopers? He had an ego like your size. How could he miss you? You're 6'6". How could he not see
Oh,
you?
you'd be surprised. You know, when the lights hit, sometimes people get disoriented. I saw that happen with many people on stage.
Now, a lot of
people
think I sound like Rodney Dangerfield. No respect, but they think I sound like Rodney. Well, I worked with him 4 years. When I met Rodney, he told me that when he was in the Catskill Mountains as a youngster, driving down an old dirt road, he hears this little building with people laughing, and he stuck his head in, and there was Dad on the stage.
Oh.
And telling gags, and the people were in hysterics, and he said to himself, he told me, gee, he has a big nose, he's funny face, I can do it. And they met, and he got the same agent.
Yeah.
And he changed his name to Jack Roy, because his name was Jay Cohen.
Right.
So when I met him in '73, I started there. He embraced me, and I spent 4 years working at that nightclub. And one of the ways I branched into working and writing for a lot of comedians, as well as doing the classical concerts. And
Well, you do have a little bit of Rodney Dangerfield. They always say I sound like Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
That's not true. I'm more of a mixture of Carol Channing and Sammy Cahn on a wet night. But you know who I really sound like? Most people don't remember Fred Allen. Remember Fred Allen?
Yes,
He was one of my favorites. I just wanted to clarify that point, that they don't think I sound like Jerry Lewis. Lady! I don't sound like him at all, and I'm not like him at all. And I'm not like our dad either.
No.
I don't wear the same bow ties, and I don't smoke the same cigars as he.
Neither one of you look like your father, but Jerry Lewis is getting the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Oscars this year.
Well, he deserves it. Look what the man did.
Movies that man
He deserves
directed?
it.
He directed what, 40, 50 pictures?
By the way,
he's in the top 10 prolific,
when Jerry Lewis started in the business, and we go right back to the Catskills where everyone started, his family had that hotel, the Browns Hotel, and his father was the MC. And our dad was like the touch of the area. Anyone that got started, they came to him for help. And they were no exception. And Jerry Lewis did a record act. In those days, a record act, you know, he would mouth the words and the thing would get faster and slower. And my father gave him some pointers. In fact, he used to end his act. Remember?
Yeah, that's
I
right.
leave you with 2 words, Five-ish Finkel. And he became a star until 50 years later we're doing a telethon. And he walked in, Jerry Lewis, and they had their 50-year reunion and became friends again.
That's
after
right.
50 years later.
Elliot, you have the potential, I've heard it, of a magnificent Shakespearean style of voice. And Ian, you have the potential of a magnificent comedic voice. The 2 of you could do a duet of stories together. Have you ever tried that?
A duet of stories. Well,
Like, what type of story would you like
I think
to
he's
hear?
going to give us our first stop in show business.
Yeah, well, you got us a job?
No, have you ever have you ever performed together?
Yeah, we did. Remember one time on that dog album, we did that old comedy bit and all this and that, which probably she cut out of the album. I'm not going to mention her name. I'm not going to give her a plug, you know. But anyway, yeah, we did stuff like that, naturally.
I don't mind playing straight to him because don't forget the straight man has his name on the left.
And it gets
And
more.
in
Yeah.
burlesque, the straight man got 60% and the comedian got 40%.
That is
Because the
true.
idea was that it was more of an achievement to set up the gag
That's
than
right.
to give the punch.
But that's true. And who can you? I know Elliot can, but Shannon, can you name who was the greatest straight man that ever lived?
I always thought it was Bud Abbott.
Correct.
But he
Right out of the box.
Right.
He got 40% and Costello got
Later, because
later.
when they went into the movies, Costello, to get even, because of
He's mad, he's
because of the
jealous.
burlesque tradition, demanded that the split be turned around, and that's why he got. In fact, he wanted to change the name to Costello and Abbott,
No, but they wouldn't
but
allow it.
they wouldn't allow it to
it.
studios. Henny Youngman, another comedian I traveled with, always used to brag to me that he felt he discovered them.
Well,
By,
that's basically true.
they were on Broadway, the streets of Paris, but when he had to take off from the Kate Smith Comedy
That's right.
Hour, he got them the job, and he felt they became superstars from the Kate Smith
And they
Comedy
didn't do
Hour.
Who's On First for weeks on end. In fact, Lou Costello's brother, who was their producer and manager, Pat, thought it wasn't a funny routine, and he kept talking him out of it.
I'll tell you one
Finally, they ran out of
amazing
time,
story
they
about
did.
Laurel Hardy. We got a minute? Yes.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Now, as a boy, I was a big fan of Laurel Hardy. So I was about 7, 8 years old, and Dad said, well, you know, the Hal Roach studios are still open. Draw some pictures. We'll send it. But Hardy was already gone, but Laurel was still there. So a month later, he sent an autographed
Yeah.
picture. A month after it, I said, wow, that's terrific. But a month later, I got a note from Stan Laurel. How are you? I haven't heard from you. What's happening? And we wrote together till he passed away in '65 when I was already almost 12 years old. And I always wondered, and here is a kid in Brooklyn, he invited me to his house, he gave me his phone number. Why write to me, of all people? Till years later, I'm an adult now in Hollywood working, and I ran in finally to somebody who knew him and asked him, and he told me that Laura lived in a tiny apartment, and he had, his whole apartment was one big index cases of letters,
Yeah.
before computers. So every day he would take out a big letter, say I was obviously in letter F, they said. So he'd
Yeah.
put it on the table, and he would write everybody in that thousands and hundreds of
Nice.
letters, and then go to the next letter. That's why he said every 3-4 weeks, when he came back to F, you got another note. And he would retain, when you wrote to him, what you said. And it was incredible, because he said he would give back.
Yeah.
And I read something tying this all together. One of his last employers was Jerry Lewis,
That's
who
true.
hired him as an advisor on the movie The Bellhop.
Yes, that's true.
So,
Bellhop's a cute picture, too. Has all those old Catskill Mountain actors in it. There's a couple of cameos in it.
Yeah. See, our father was thrown out of the mountains, because as other people were, and that's why they became famous.
Yeah,
The people that were thrown out of the mountain became...
thrown out. Thrown
Well,
out.
I mean,
How do
he
you get
wasn't-
thrown out of a mountain?
But the point is, he
What,
went
does
on
a
to
bear come over
Broadway.
and kick you out?
But guys like him, Jackie Mason, Alan King,
well, they
all went on
on. They're not kicked out. They went on to greater, more loftier positions in the business.
Yes,
loftier positions. Yeah, you like that Sunday stuff there.
Well, I know that...
By the way, he wrote a terrific book. It's in his third printing. The first two were blurred. But
yeah, I got it. I just sent the guy the cover pictures.
Is there a part for you in it, Elliot?
It's a book.
It's a book.
It's a book. I wrote a book. It's being published.
What about a play? I thought you wrote a play.
I don't want to talk about that yet. It's too early. We got the one other thing.
What's the book?
The book is called "You're Not Supposed to Be Here." See, and it's the the viewpoints, the travels, the opinions, etc., etc.
Both Mr. Finkel and I work on cruise ships, and therefore...
don't advertise too much.
Excuse me. And we travel the world sometimes in those things.
We were everywhere. We've seen everything. We see all the countries.
We do the world cruises.
Now they don't hate us as much.
We do the world cruises where the average age is deceased, and...
yeah, but how about the wheelchair races on the top?
Here's two people on a world cruise, two men like us sitting on a world cruise. One goes like this. The other son says, "What's the rush?"
I envy you going on those cruises.
Don't envy. What do you envy? You want to go on a cruise? You want to take your wife on a cruise?
Yes, I want
Don't do it.
I want to do it.
She's going to get seasick. I told you don't do it. And you want to go? You'll enjoy. Go with Elliot. I'll stay here, and I'm writing a book with
Listen, before we did, he looked like Tom Cruise
genius.
before he did ships. So
That's
you
right.
see what it does to us afterwards.
Yeah, that buffet. You go on a buffet line. People from certain other countries in Europe, whose countries shall be nameless, they push in front of you like they're taking the Sudetenland all over again.
I don't bother with the food. I go sightseeing. I go on every possible shore excursion, and then I meet everybody on
you
the
get
boat.
to see a church for half an hour just to say you've been in that place.
Exactly. And it's marvelous, and I
please.
remember it, and I learned from that, like going to a museum. But it's not for you. You're not that type of person.
I do them, but I'm working on them.
An audience is an audience, whether they're floating or sitting
That's
still.
an audience. I do my act, We do our acts together sometimes or separately,
We're like the Rolling Stones on the cruise ships.
Well, you're perfectionists. You're virtuosos. You're perfectionists.
Wow.
You're in demand. Everybody has utilized or wanted to utilize your talents. Ian, you work with Philip
Everyone
Glass.
wants to utilize our talents. We haven't got a dime.
Ian, tell me about the composers you've worked with, the arrangements you've made. What were your favorites?
None. I worked for everybody. I wrote for a million people and stuff. And, I don't have any, you mean who I enjoyed working with?
Yes.
Who was a big influence?
Well, the influences on me weren't people I worked with. I was influenced by two musicians, Heifetz. I wanted to be the Jascha Heifetz of the xylophone, naturally. And I loved the way Earl Father Hines played the piano. Those were my, though there were other great ones, not to, Errol Gardner and Oscar Peterson and Horowitz, Rubens, the classical and the jazz guys. But I loved, what he could do, see? And Heifetz, that you don't see virtuosos. If he'd be around today, the big names would be far in the back. They wouldn't be so big if you had a guy like him.
Well, music in those days had more of a personality. Like, for instance, that's a part of what I feel is ruining the classical. I read there was only 2% of sales is classical music because nowadays it's technically perfect.
Yeah, but it's got no soul to it. Got nothing.
Look, if
you got soloists with a repertoire of 6 numbers. Heifetz could stay there for 2 hours.
But nowadays, if somebody buys a record of the Grieg Piano Concerto, they buy their record and they're happy. 100 years ago, well, I say 50, 70 years ago, I would be there. I want to buy a record of how Rubinstein played it, how Rachmaninoff, how Hoffman, how go down the list.
Naturally.
Where you can identify a musician. Ooh, sorry.
No, you're all right.
You can identify a musician.
Keep going.
Okay.
Lift the foot.
There you go. Here we go.
Lucky they're brothers.
That's right.
You're telling me.
You can identify the musician just by hearing them play blindfolded.
Well, certainly. That was in any, by the way, that was in all fields. Like if you heard a jazz guy, in 2 bars you would say, that's him. He had a distinctive, like for example, when you hear a record, let's say of Errol Gardner, a bar goes by, yeah, that's him. You know what I mean? Oscar Peterson, you say right away. Now, people play, I don't know who they are. Who are they? They're good, not to say someone is not good, but there's so many alike because they want to play down to the dumbed down thing, and they're afraid the companies won't make money. They won't take a chance with someone with something different, you know what I mean? They don't want someone with such a weird personality. If you had today a guy coming out like a Thelonious Monk, he'd have a hard time of it. Not that I was a fan of his, but you know what I'm saying? Someone with a unique slant on playing it. The same thing. A Heifetz stood there, perfect, no emotion. You know, they think no emotion. Why don't they listen to what he's playing? Once you listen to the record, then you'll hear something. But nowadays, you got to move around and shake the head like they're playing violin, like they're davening over there at the Sudden Place Synagogue, like this. And he just stood there, but he was the greatest. No one could play like
something else. You know, we're blacks and Jews in conversation.
Yes.
And you're talking about the greatest musicians at a time when there was tremendous racism, and you know, and the Jews helped bring blacks everywhere, and also use their music as well to incorporate it with klezmer.
Well,
by the way,
blacks. Wait a minute. To paraphrase something. If not for Jews and blacks, there'd be no music. But okay. Let's.
Also, they were really
I don't go into that stuff.
They mixed together very well over the years, their cultures, and also they crossed the divide together. For instance, our father was an MC in Jewish vaudeville, Yiddish vaudeville, and who would they bring out? The black acts from Apollo would come down to the National Theater.
That's show business.
And so it's they share one holiday, October 28th, when the Cadillacs come out. But
I don't know, racism. Yeah, there was a lot of terrible racism in this country.
But not where we grew up, though. Not where we grew up. We never had it.
Show business. We, in our family growing up, and later, we don't want to talk about past wives or things, but there were people of all races, purple, yellow, green, whatever color, this, 2 eyeballs, 6 eyeballs, doesn't matter, because we were brought up in show business, completely void of any prejudice, as it should be. You know, sometimes you meet someone, I know when you're traveling, that's what makes me mad on cruise ships. You meet a guy, let's say he's from Poland. They're always, it's a great country. We have no prejudice in Poland. We have no racism. I say, yeah, because you only got one lousy race there. That's why. Try more than one, then we'll see what you got. We never had that stuff. We always were mixed.
We have been through so many marriages, relationships, it don't matter. Now we have one theory. You meet someone you don't like and you buy them a house. That's all that matters.
Well, I'm not coming from the point of view of I know both of you have so many mixtures in your families.
Yeah.
You're like our organization. It's like my organization became your family. I'm not talking from that perspective.
What?
I'm talking from the perspective that when you have a band, when you're working with musicians, it's a panoply. It's across the board. You don't have those instances where it's a hotel that no one is allowed in.
Oh, no, that's
so.
First of all,
but you know something? It's got to be a kaleidoscope, not a melting pot. For instance, you can't homogenize your culture. You come in and you can't. You can't homogenize your culture. You come in and you bring your culture to the plate. And that's what makes it so fascinating. We come from a certain culture, and other people come in with us, and it makes that exciting mix. That's what makes music.
I judge a person how he plays. I don't care what color he is or what he is, or who cares? That means nothing to me. If it's a good player, it could be a purple, the male, female, who cares? As long as the person is a good player, there's musicians that we have worked with, they're all from there. Who cares? Nobody cares, especially now that you shouldn't care. It's ridiculous.
But you'll be surprised how many people cared and how many people were excluded. But you on another
That's
point,
them, not us.
But I know
that was
not.
them.
But they're excluded from the outside world.
Good trumpet, French horn, whatever. Who cares? He
They're
plays good.
excluded from the outside world. I mean, we can bring up in the old days where some of the greatest black acts were the highest paid acts in the business, but they couldn't go through the front. but they were
But
acclaimed
that's
amongst
not
us.
the people in show business.
No,
That's
among
the
us,
other
they were,
people.
yeah, that's
the
the
so-called
outside.
straights, the suckers
It's
over
like
there.
the real people of the arts. It's like you have the world of the arts, and then you have the other world, the
Well,
different
I wrote
world.
shows about Burt Williams. In his day, he was the highest paid. He was getting $7,000 a week in the Palace Theater in those days. You know, like $7,000 a week in what 1917 or right? I think I wrote shows, and they wouldn't let him go through the front door. It's ridiculous. That's not the other acts. They would eat together. They go in and everything. They're doing a sketch together. They're in the same show. They wouldn't say Eddie Cantor wouldn't say I'm not appearing with him.
No.
Of course not. But that's the non-theatrical people had problems. Theatrical people, in general, there's some that are bad too. There was some theatrical people that were prejudiced. There was even anti-Semitism from people in the days where every act would come on. Every comic's a Jewish actor. You take that guy like Frank Fay, was the MC at the Palace Theater,
Well,
an anti-Semite,
You can trace it down to Wagner, who wrote his
Yeah.
big book, his
All right.
volume, where Jews can only recreate. They can't create. So in other words, a Jew
Yeah, so he said, yeah.
can't write music; he can recreate music.
Yeah.
His
So
conductor was Jewish, and then he took his wife for his mistress. On another point, my brother-in-law, who you just met, David Burns,
he won the Emmy last night.
The
I mean the Grammy.
yeah.
he won the
Close.
Grammy for doing from his basement the Pete Seeger at '89 the album.
That's pretty good, and he didn't even know the chord that you had to tell him the name of the chord. You see what happened to music? I'm not putting him down, but did you see? Remember the old producers used to read his score.
By the way,
You know,
Mr. Finkel over here won a Grammy also. Not how was it? 2 years ago
A
now.
couple years, yeah. That
Tell
was
me,
for,
tell me.
Mr. Rogers, Songs from the Neighborhood, see? And I did the big band stuff on it, and featured, one particular cut was Bucky Pizzarelli. No, excuse me, John Pizzarelli. Bucky's his father. I had a brain freeze there for a minute. He also, Bucky's a great guitarist. John Pizzarelli, great guitar player, and he sang and played on it, and it won the Grammy, see? And the producer's name was Dennis Scott, a lovely fella. He lives in Nashville or something, and lovely. And yes, we won that year the best children's album. Imagine me, I had to do a children's album.
You see what I have to do to get this out of you while you're...
I don't get to talk about who I played. It was like showing home movies.
And Ian Finkel here, we have
It's like
two
showing
Grammy
home
winners
movies.
Right in our own circle of
I don't need to do that. They said they want 100 words or less of biography from me. Did you get that in the email?
Thank you very much,
from the-
gentlemen. I've much
Wait a
success
minute.
with you
You're
both.
going already.
There's another show next week with you too.
my-
Blacks and Jews in
Go-
Conversation, 2009.
Come back. We're going to do a whole show on London Lee right here in the studio.
Yeah, we'll do a show in conversation. What happened here?